All right. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us on this fabulous Wednesday evening. My name is Shavela Moore. If you don't know, I'm a city clerk for the City of College Park and the chair of the College Park Complete Count Committee. And this is our What's the Tea on the 2020 census. I know you guys have seen the flyer, probably trying to figure out what are they talking about now, but we're here to just give you some good conversation, discussion, questions if you have any on the 2020 census and what you can do to be counted, the demographics we're trying to reach, who it affects, what it affects, and all of that good stuff. But without further ado, I would like to introduce you guys to the man, the facilitator tonight, Mr. Alex Lima. Alex, I don't know your official title, but I know you're the man with the Census Bureau. So go ahead and introduce yourself, and we're going to go ahead and get started.
Thank you, Shavela. I appreciate you, and I appreciate all the work you've been doing tireless. I know it's tireless. Thank you so much. My name is Alex Lima. I'm a partnership specialist with the U.S. Census Bureau. I'm responsible for College Park. I'm also a neighbor to College Park. I'm right up the street in the city of East Point. And so to me, College Park is also my community. So I have a vested interest in making sure that College Park gets its most accurate count. The census. So what is the census? You think census, you think somebody's going to come knock at your door, ask you a bunch of questions. Maybe you were a child and you remember a series of questions, papers. Maybe you're an adult and you remember these questions. It's not quite that way anymore. The census now is easy. It's online. You could do it on the phone. It's secure. The census asks you some basic questions. By basic, I mean you have shared more on Instagram. You have shared more on Facebook than what the census will ask you, which is, what's your birthday? Do you rent? Do you own? Who's in your home as of April 1st? What's your gender? What's your ethnic background? A few other questions. There are no controversial questions on this census form. We're not asking you how much money is in your bank. We're not asking you for personal information like your social security number or the PIN to your ATM. Again, we're asking you basic questions that are far less intrusive than what has seen social media. So based on your answering the census is how College Park gets an accurate count. With an accurate count, it's how College Park gets its fair share of over $675 billion. Now, I say College Park gets that. I know some people are like, but what do I get? So where's my money? So you get the benefit in the fact that the city gets money to ensure that the roads are repaired, ensure that programs are still funded, which are very important in our community, to ensure that there are fire stations in College Park that are operational. So there's a bunch of ways that you benefit. You're not getting a check. This is not the stimulus. That's a different conversation. But over the next 10 years, the quality of your life is dependent on the census count. And that's just the financial piece. Then there's also the political piece. You've heard of redistricting, I hope. And if not, maybe you've heard of gerrymandering. Well, district lines are drawn up based on the count in a geographic area. So it's just super important that you take less than 10 minutes to fill out this census form to shape your future, our future collectively. Because without it, if you think things are tough right now, I think I read an article that said somebody's scanning books for their children to read. Or right now, where people are learning virtually and don't have access to computers, well, without an accurate count, the counties don't get the appropriate money for education. I'm not going to go too deep into it because we're going to have this conversation. But in a nutshell, the census is what I consider the great equalizer. I believe voting to be of the utmost importance. I believe that the census is right there because it affects the next 10 years of our lives, your life, the life of the child who's 4. So yeah, stick around with us and let's talk about how we can improve the numbers and the participation in College Park so that the quality of life in College Park and Fulton County South will improve. Thank you. So we're going to go into a short video that is going to be played that's going to talk to you about being counted. Right, Shavela?
Okay, I am being told there's no sound. So we're gonna try this again. I can hear it clear as day on my end, but let me try something else. 1 second.
And while we have this quick commercial break, I mean, sometimes it's better to be silent. I know you're reading it. I know you're reading it, so we got your attention. So we're gonna bring it back, but I know you're reading it, and it's all vital information.
Okay. Do you guys see the screen?
Not yet.
Not yet.
What about now?
No.
Mm-mm.
I don't know.
Okay, so what we're going to do is while we figure out the video aspect, we're going to introduce you to our panel of residents, of gentlemen who have been doing this work tirelessly to ensure that, again, communities in College Park and communities like College Park around Georgia and the country are being counted and ensuring that they're receiving their fair share of this money from the federal government. I'm going to start with Mr. Ed Reed. Mr. Ed Reed, if you would please tell the folks who you are, where you're from, and what you do.
Good evening. Thank you, Alex. Thank you so much, Ms. Moore, for hosting this very informative town hall. I think that residents of College Park and the vicinity area will get some really good information here that they've already gotten, actually, and we'll have a nice dialogue about what the census means for our community. But I'm glad to be here. I'm the program director at an organization called Fair Count. We are a nonprofit founded by leader Stacey Abrams last March. And so we are working not only across the state of Georgia, but also across the nation to ensure a fair and accurate count for everyone. And so we've been working in communities, and certainly the pandemic has put a challenge, even more of a challenge to some of the outreach that we're doing to what the census refers to as some of our harder to count communities. And so we're ramping up a lot of that efforts as we enter the door knocking phase coming up here in a few weeks in August. And so we want to make sure that we're able to boost those numbers across the state before we go into that phase. And we've been doing some work in College Park and the surrounding areas, and phone banking and calling into the area, text banking, to still doing some virtual and digital outreach without having to do that in-person outreach, to make sure that we're staying safe and healthy, but also having very impactful interactions with people along the way. And so glad to be here. Looking forward to the discussion. Thanks again, Alex.
Thank you, Ed. Mr. Demetrius Taylor, I believe you are a College Park resident and a local celebrity, to my understanding. Would you please jump on in?
Good evening, everyone. Yes, I am Demetrius Taylor. I am the vice chair of the Business and Industrial Development Authority Board here in College Park, also known as BIDA. And I'm also an entrepreneur. I have my own radio show, Dishing Tea with Big Meech, radio show and podcast. So this particular work here, I've jumped on board ever since the census had started, as far as announcing it and being a part of making sure that people get counted, and wanted to make sure that the information is disseminated properly. I'm glad to be here because I'm a little unorthodox with my way of teaching this thing, and I'm hoping that tonight we'll be able to share some information with the residents and the community at large, so that they too can jump on board and understand how serious this is. And I'm going to piggyback off of you, Alex, and say this, and that there is, you know how we say, if you don't vote, you can't talk to me, or you have no need to complain? Well, if you don't get counted and we don't get that money, you have no need to complain. And we'll get into that later.
Yes, sir. I appreciate that. Mr. Carlos Scott, thank you so much for joining us. If you would jump on in, tell us who you are, who you're with, and why the census is important to your organization.
Good evening. I represent the Emerging 100 of South Metro Atlanta. My name is Carlos Scott. I'm serving as the treasurer of our chapter. We're an auxiliary to the 100 Black Men of South Metro Atlanta, and we're currently doing a series of initiatives to kind of enhance the count, as we state, in the College Park, East Point, and South Metro Atlanta area. Through our initiatives and collaborations with other organizations such as yours, NAACP, Noble, and the Pan-Hellenic Council, we are looking to try and make sure that we capture a larger count of the male census and vote between ages 18 to 50.
Excellent. Thank you, sir. I thank you so much for being present with us. Mr. Lance Jones, step right on up. I'm very excited that you're on here because not only you a College Park resident, but you have some experience at the nation's capital that brings a different perspective on this census tool that we use here. You get to see, you know what happens on the other side of it. So please.
Yeah, absolutely. My name is Lance Jones. I'm co-founder of a media organization called Action Jones. And the intent of Action Jones is to amplify voices and focus on issues that you don't necessarily find in the mainstream media. And yes, I did work and live over there in DC on Capitol Hill, and it was a great place. And a few of my years I worked there with the Congressional Black Caucus Foundation, and I had the wonderful occasion to be on the ground, not just there in DC, but throughout lots of metropolitan areas, and see why issues are important and what happens on the ground. And the census is one of those issues. It's a wonderful initiative that not only allows us to share our voice, but there is a direct correlation to us utilizing our voices, and then in turn seeing that come back in our own neighborhood. And it's intensely important that we fill out the census, and it's intensely important that folks understand exactly why that is. And so I'm happy to be here. I'm pleased that my city, the city of College Park, I live here. This is my house here in College Park. I'm very pleased to be here and pleased that my city is taking this seriously.
Spectacular. Mr. Lawrence Wilborn, thank you so much again for coming and running this anchor leg. Tell us who you are, who you represent.
Sure. Again, Lawrence Wilborn. I'm with Fathers Incorporated. And Fathers Incorporated has an initiative, a campaign we kicked off around end of last year, beginning of this year, called Black Dads Count. And Black Dads Count is our census work to ensure that Black men, specifically dads, are counted during the U.S. Census. And so we've actually worked with partners such as Fair Count. We've done work with the faith community to go within ministries and make sure that those folks were counted. But then some of the work that we really that we really hang our hat on is being able to connect with our barbershops. We have over 100 barbershop partners in Metro Atlanta, where we are going to barbershops and we're spreading the gospel for the census within those within those places. And so we have a very robust social media presence pushing this message, especially since the COVID pandemic has hit us. But we're excited about the work because we believe in making sure that everybody's counted, and we want to make sure that Black men are counted this go around. So thank you for having us today.
Spectacular. Thank you so very much. Again, I'm very honored, and I thank you, gentlemen, for taking time out to extend your day on Wednesday and talk some more census talk. One thing that I was able to do was pull up some census data just specifically on the city of College Park, because I want us to know exactly what we're talking about and what we're working with. So in the year 2000, the census count in the city of College Park was 20,382 people. In 2010, it dropped drastically, 13,942 people. The projection for 2020 is over 15,000 people. However, only 40.6% of the people have currently responded to the census, which nets out at about 6,200 people. So that math just doesn't equate. I always say to people, you wouldn't go to work and collect or even accept 40% of your paycheck, would you? You wouldn't go to a restaurant, order a whole pizza pie, and then 40% of it shows up to feed you. You'd be up in arms. You'd be like, hey, this isn't it. Like, I need to talk to the manager. I need to talk to somebody. So that's kind of what we're working with College Park. Some more data. The median age in College Park is pretty young. It's 33.8 years young. That's pretty young. We're looking at 55% female, 45% male. Let's not beat around the bush. College Park is an African-American city, 79% African-American.
Mm-hmm.
That means that there are certain things that we need from the government to help us in certain instances, not always, but when available, we need certain programs to help us. I know that I have partaken in some of those. This is a number that alarms me. 31.5% of the people in College Park reside in poverty. That means that 1 in 3 people in College Park, the city of College Park, are residing in poverty. And again, if you're residing in poverty, that means you need help. That means you need help with the SNAPs. That means you need help with WIC. That means you need help with Peach Care or Medicare or whatever it is that you have. These aren't things that are negative. These are things that are put in place to help us survive. But again, 1 in 3. Here's something else. 54% of those are children. 54% of the 1 in 3 are living in poverty. So again, census data is money for children, for programs, for reduced lunch programs, for after school programs, for education, and not to look over our seniors. 15% of the people are seniors. So the census is a big deal. I don't know that people really understand and realize how the census actually affects our daily lives. It's a word that you think it was a 4-letter word because you say it to some people and they twist their face on you. But it's something that we need to bring to our people in the community of East Point, in the city of College Park, and let them know that this is paramount. Like, this is beyond important. Brushing your teeth in the morning, making sure that you got some food in the fridge. Those are all vital key things. Well, filling out the census is on that same level. So without beating a horse down to a pulp, let's get into it. Completing the census. People act like it's hard. People act like it's the questionnaire that comes with 45 pages. Not the case. Who wants to share their personal experience on how they filled the census out and how quick it was?
I'm happy to go. And I'll just say, not telling my age here, but this is actually the only second time I've had the opportunity to fill out the census. And the first time I was a senior in college, and I wasn't so up on what the census was and what was happening. And I had to wait until they came and knocked on my door. So I want to make sure this time that wasn't the case, being proactive. So I actually completed the first day that it went live online. And it took me, I have a household of 3, a wife and a small child. And so I was excited to be able to, with my entire family, be able to complete it online. And it took less than 10 minutes. And I think for most households, it'll be the same thing. If you're doing it online, there is the phone option. You can call in to do it over the phone, which most people don't realize that option exists. And I understand, for some of our elderly population, that is a good option. If they're not comfortable with doing it online, they of course may not be comfortable with someone coming to their home. That may be a good option. And then of course, just going through our junk mail that we may have put that questionnaire in that has come to our house, and then subsequent postcards and reminders, and making sure that we're pulling that out to ensure that we're getting that. But it was a very fulfilling experience for me. We think about voting as part of our democracy, but we don't often think about completing the census as a pillar of that. And it's because it's not one of those sexy things that we talk about a lot. We don't talk about it every year because it only happens every decade. But I think, we are certainly bringing a lot of attention to that. The group of partners on this call and the cities and counties across the state of Georgia are bringing attention to it. But I think we're going to have to do more, coupled with the challenges of COVID-19. But overall, it was a really good experience and fulfilling for me to complete it.
Did anybody in the panel use the phone option? Did anybody decide to call it in?
Yeah, actually, I didn't call, but I did use the other phone option, which which actually took place right here in this kitchen. And all I did was log on to the website here, and literally, I was here with this very phone, boom, and went through the steps, and I was doing it as I was making some eggs. So like, it was that easy, and all I had to do was every now and then look down and do a little, and make sure the eggs didn't burn, come back. And it was that easy. So but I think, I very much appreciate what Ed had to say, because in my household, at least on April 1st, it was me, my dog, which I didn't count, and my sister. And my sister had just gotten back to Atlanta from being abroad, obviously in response to COVID, and so. I had to look up on the rules a little bit about how I should count her. But I made sure I did it right. And it literally only took less than a minute to figure out exactly how to do it. So, at least through this phone way, through the, website phone way, it was incredibly easy.
I always joke, and I'm telling my age, but I say it's like the Humpty dance. It's real easy to do. You could literally be, and I've seen this, I've driven by certain restaurants where they have a line a mile long waiting for their vegan burger. And you could literally be in line filling out your census. You could probably fill out 5 censuses by the time you get to the front door. But the reality is it's super quick. Like, you can do it in less than 10 minutes. The challenges of COVID have thrown a little bit of a monkey wrench into our operation. We were going to have enumerators come and follow up with the people who did not respond. We're working on that. There will be people coming to your door, but we're retooling them, if you will. They're going to have PPE. They're going to make sure that, they're socially distanced. So Ed mentioned, next month you will start to see some census employees out in the field. Do not be scared of them. Do not pull guns on them. Do not send them somewhere unpleasant. They're there to help out the community and the city of College Park to ensure that the city gets an accurate count. So they will have a badge and they will present themselves with census information. You can call 1-844-330-2020. If maybe you're in the car and you're not texting and driving, good job. You can be speaking and driving and be filling out your census form that quickly. So thank you, Ed. Thank you, Lance. my2020census.gov, be it on a computer, be it on a cell phone, be it on a tablet, you can access it. And it's, again, less than 10 minutes to go ahead and take care of it. It is safe and it is secure. So do not be concerned about your information being tracked anywhere. So let's move forward into the next one. How does the census impact the African American community? Which, again, in the city of College Park is 79%. So you talk about 8 out of 10 folks in College Park are African American. What do you see the impact, Demetrius, of the census on the community?
Well, the way how I see it, and now I'm going to be a little unorthodox here, okay? Because I'm going to connect a few dots because of the climate that we're in. And I'm going to start by attributing this to education. I don't know if you guys remember, but every time that the schools, but let me start by saying I'm from up north, so I don't know if they do this down here. There's the 4th Friday count. And on that 4th Friday, they have to do all the students who are in school. So when you register for school, there's this relentless thing to make sure that all the kids are in school, and especially on that 4th Friday, so they could get the count. Once they get the count to know that they have this many students in the district or within the school system, then the joke is after that, 2 weeks later, then they start kicking everybody out. Okay. But the bigger picture is that they have already been counted so that they know how much money they're going to get per student, and et cetera, et cetera. I use that example for this here with the census because this here is basically the same thing, but I want to have an impact here. And the impact that I want to have is we're marching, we're demonstrating, we're protesting, okay, for the injustices that's happening to Black men and Black women across the country at the hands of police brutality and et cetera, et cetera. Now, just imagine that impact if you're out there fighting for money. What if you're out there fighting because they killed George Floyd and they killed Breonna Taylor? And that's $20,000 that they done took out your bank account or out his bank account. Maybe they didn't count that, you know, and now we're sitting up here saying that, oh, the school systems, which the federal government has already just declined the budget, to cut the school budget by $1.9 billion. But now we're fighting to say that we need this money because our kids need to be educated. See, this becomes a great, big, huge weight on us. And so now that we're out here struggling to make sure that the programs are funded, we now have to march and demonstrate to say, hey, I need you to get counted because we need this money to make sure that the powers that be don't take this money from us. You understand? A lot of the impact that we're having, us, as far as we're saying Black Lives Matter, well, honey, we got to count Black lives. We got to count them so that we can get the coin to make sure that the programs that we say that we need, that we're fighting for, are going to be funded. Now, mind you, this money here is the money that's supposed to come to us because you are a citizen here within your district. We're going to say College Park right here, because College Park, being a predominantly African-American city, it doesn't make sense that we're doing all this marching, but yet you don't know really what you're marching for. Imagine that. Imagine somebody telling you that they're not going to give you this $20,000 per person. Now, you got a household that, okay, like I said, I'm unorthodox, so please forgive me if y'all get offended by this. But for those who are single mothers and you got 16 kids and 15 baby daddies, okay, all those kids got to be counted, okay? So imagine you have all these kids and you're not taking the census properly or taking it seriously. That's $20,000 per child that is not coming to make sure that your daycare center is going to be operational, to make sure that the kids are going to eat in school with the free lunch program. See, all of this is making sense, okay? For my single fathers out there who feel as though that you were in the system and you on papers and you scared to give your information. And so you think, that whole man thing, oh, I ain't got time for this, and I'm too masculine for this, or that's just some BS or whatever on the side because you don't think of the political aspect of it. This here, we've got to do better than that, because a lot of times, a lot of the single fathers out there within our culture are not taken seriously because we're already fighting. You in the system, you're paying child support, you're doing this, and trying to get counted, you're not seeing where this money is going outside of it, maybe going into the child support system or whatever. No, this is going to programs to make sure your kids are in school properly, to make sure that they get the school supplies, to make sure that the playgrounds and stuff can have the adequate equipment on the playgrounds and things, so these kids can have after school programs and latchkey programs and things of that nature. These are a lot of things that a lot of folks don't think about or see or consider because we don't give it this particular voice. And that's some of the impact that we're having in the African American community.
That's very well said, and I'm gonna let you jump in. I'm just gonna piggyback on that real quick because we're gonna be on this topic for a minute. I think everyone has something that they will add. Sadly, in our community, we don't get educated about the census. There's a big conversation about voting, and then when it's census time, don't really know what that means. Don't really know what that is. Yeah. My wife didn't know about the census until I started working for the census. and that's a problem. We need to start educating our communities and our children so that they know in advance, listen, this is a once in a decade opportunity to shape the future. There's an African proverb that I live by, and that's complete the task while the tool is in hand. Well, the tool in hand right now is the census. And until October 31st, when this thing comes to a close, that is the tool in hand. If you want to do something that's going to help reform our lives, but you don't want to go march, or you don't feel safe because of the current health situation, filling out your census is a great way to do just that, to bring in dollars, to bring in representation, because the needs don't get the money. The count gets the money. Okay, I'm gonna stop right there, Mr. Lawrence Woodbaum, please.
No, I was going to just say, I was going to piggyback. You actually stole everything I was going to say, but but no, Mr. Taylor was right on. I think one thing that we miss, and it's happened in so many conversations, is that education piece. I was not aware of the census. I've heard of the census growing up, but my mother, I don't ever remember her taking a census, right? Because it was never communicated within our community. That's something that we needed to do, and so now I think it's important for all of us to assume that responsibility to educate one another. Because the thing is, as it was said earlier, if we're not being counted, those resources that we're entitled to. It's not that we're given anything because we're entitled to these resources. They're going to be reallocated to other communities. And so it's important for us to really do our due diligence to make sure that we're out there making sure folks understand that. And it starts with education. And so, I remember when we did the census here at my house, we did it together. I mean, and it's kind of, somebody might thought it was kind of corny a little bit, but we did it together because what I wanted my kids to see is that in the next 10 years, I have a son that is going to be of age that's going to be able to do the census on his own. And he's going to need to make sure he knows how to do it and see the importance of doing that. So, we have to get out there and we have to educate folks. And there are some communities that have learned this information, and they are taking advantage of those who don't know this information, of communities that don't know this information. And so we have to do everything we can to make sure that the communities that we're in, the communities that we represent, are well educated.
Correct. And I will share with you, there are some cities north that are reporting in the 70th percentile. Okay. Wow. So living south, driving through the potholes I drive through, having the food and business options that I have, I, like many of us, go north. We go north because there's more options, because there's less potholes. And it's all associated with census counts, because businesses are looking at census data.
Yeah.
Where do they open up shop? Infrastructure for road repair. Where are the people traveling to and from? And so, it's very important for our communities and our cities and the city of College Park that everybody shows up so that the city can receive the funds it needs so that we don't have to go north. So we can actually be home. I pulled up a statistic. The average commute time for a College Park resident is 33 minutes to go to work. 33 minutes. Employment opportunities are associated with the census. You wouldn't think that, but it's the truth, because companies want to know where are the people so we can come and open up a building or an office or a warehouse. The census is a big deal. I'll bring it back. African Americans in the census. What do you think? What are some of the hangups? What are some of the opportunities?
Well, I want to start with saying that a lot of the stigmas that we have surrounding the census comes from just our general lack of familiarity and knowledge about the census. If you're lucky, you may experience your parents filling out the census twice in your lifetime before you reach the age in which you are now able to do it yourself. So there aren't as many opportunities to have that dialogue within our households as you do the typical voting, whether that's primaries or your local elections and so forth. So I think that the stigma generates just from the lack of dialogue and the consistency in which we participate. As we know, the first census that was ran, African Americans were only counted as 3/5 of the human. In the last census that we conducted, there was only 3.9 million, and I say this facetiously, 3.9 million African Americans unaccounted for. Rate of $20,000 per person. That's a life-changing amount of money for the communities, College Park and beyond. So I think that, one, we need to have more open discussions with those members of our community who have just shied away or who have been misinformed about what the overarching goal of the census is, so that we can expand that. And like Mr. Taylor stated, education is one of the major components that the census contributes to, as well as banking and supporting small Black-owned businesses and lending them the finance to provide us with the options to keep us from staying outside of our area and to keep us from having to seek employment opportunities outside of the College Park area. So I think that some of the stigmas that we have are kind of circular in a sense, in which we can't get out of our own way because we aren't educating ourselves on the path forward. And with the count comes the opportunity for us to have more of a platform in the political spectrum that impacts us, not just locally, but on a wider scale, whether it comes to the criminal justice system or whether it comes to other federal components, because the number of people in our district affects the electoral college. And as we all witnessed in 2016, the electoral college pretty much stole the popular election vote from us and has since given us the administration that we're currently withstanding. So the importance of the census is multifaceted, in an abundance of importance for us to continue to spread the word to our community of how that 1 10-minute piece of time can impact us for the next 10 years and set our children and our future generations up for success in College Park and beyond.
Can I comment on this?
Please.
I want to piggyback on something, because see, as the vice chair of BIDA, Business and Industrial Development Authority, I've learned a lot, because I'm not necessarily part of the political structure, but what this has taught me is about how economic development works. And we're saying about businesses and how they use the census data in order to do location scouts and carrying on where they want to set up shop. And one of the things that you will hear often is the term rooftops. There's a certain amount of rooftops that has to be in a particular area in order for a business to come into place. Now, we know in African-American communities, we hear all the time about being food deserts and carrying on. Well, you wonder why there's only Family Dollars and Dollar Generals in your area. It's because of the census, because so many houses and so many rooftops are there to where it would determine that these are the types of businesses that will only be allowed to come into these particular neighborhoods. We can't get a Whole Foods or whatever because we don't show that we have the rooftops or the traffic, when they do the traffic analysis, to say that this is the amount of traffic that comes to these particular areas. Why? Because the census is saying this is what's happening here. So it becomes a political thing, if you will, but it's also a business strategy on how we are able to make sure that we get what we want in our communities. And I'm gonna go back to what I said at the beginning of this, piggybacking off of Alex, when I say, if you don't vote, I don't want to hear you complain. Well, here's where it is, sweetie. If you do not get counted, you don't get counted today. That means I don't want to hear you for 10 years, because you can't wait to get number 5.
Right.
When you want something done and you want to say, oh, how come we can't get this? Or, oh, that don't make no sense that we can't get that. Well, you didn't do the count. You didn't get counted here. So we didn't get that money. There is 15,100 and some odd people here in the city of College Park alone. Let's do the math on that. At $20,000 per person over the next 10 years, that is $306,680,000 that the city of College Park stands to gain. $306,680,000 that we're supposed to get, that is going to help us to make sure that we get what we need to do. So if you don't get counted, I don't want to hear you in your number 5, wondering how come our communities are not up to snuff or whatever, because you didn't do the census, baby. You didn't count yourself, and so that you are able to challenge your representatives, to challenge your leaders and say, this is what we want in our neighborhoods, to challenge your economic development and say, this is what we need. See, this is why these things are important.
Very well stated. And I'm going to try to strike a nerve with this comment. I've heard it a lot. I've been at a lot of presentations, and it was brought up that, in the beginning, Black folk were only counted as 3/5 a person.
Mm-hmm.
But I will submit to you that if you don't get counted, you're not even 3/5. You're a big goose egg.
You're zero.
So if the sound of being counted at 3/5 offends you, and you haven't done your census, I need you to do your census so you can be counted as a whole person. Because if you don't get counted, zero. Mr. Ed Reed, you've been out there, you've been, on this campaign for a while. Where do you see the opportunity for the African American community to overcome the obstacles with being involved with the census?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Alex, for the question. I was hoping to chime in here. We launched last May, an initiative called Black Men Count. And so we work very closely with Lawrence and his team over at Fathers Incorporated and Black Dads Count as well. So for over a year now, we've been looking to mobilize Black men, not only in Georgia, but also across the nation. One of the things the Urban Institute estimated that in Georgia alone, there were 67,000 Black men that could go undercounted in 2020. And we think about that estimate, that was prior to COVID-19. So, we add that to the mix, it probably is much higher than that. And so, we created this complete count committee of Black men from across the entire state. And it came up with some really creative and innovative ways to sort of reach Black men kind of where they were. One of the things we found out is that oftentimes Black men are not going to go to some place to hear a lecture or a talk on the census, right? We got to meet them where they are, and we try to do that, do stuff in person, through barbershops, through lounges, church men's groups and that type of thing. We were able to have some really frank and intimate conversations with Black men about what the census was and what it was not. Because what we found is that a lot of people thought it was something that it wasn't. And so we were able to dispel those myths in a way that I think we're able to change minds and hearts as relates to people completing the census. And so one of the things that we found is that Black women were super critical in the completion of the census for Black men. And so we didn't want to leave the sisters out of the conversation. So we created another initiative called Sisters for the Census. And so we have two initiatives that we've been working with to galvanize and mobilize Black men to keep them, Black men and women, to keep them full. And you can learn more about those at blackmencount.org and Sisters for the Census .org. And we have a ton of resources there you can download to share with people. And the last thing I'll say is that, we've done some polling with the different events that we had. The number one issue seems to be lack of importance or education around the importance of the census. And then number two generally is a suspicion of the government around, why do you need this information? Why do I have to get this to you? And we've talked a little bit about that at length on this call, but I think driving that point home that, your information cannot be shared with law enforcement. It can't be shared with that landlord. So if you got, your lease says that you're only supposed to have 4 people living in your apartment, but you got 10 people living there, don't be scared to include them all on the census, because we're leaving money on the table. And it was estimated that for every person in Georgia that we leave off the census, we lose $3,600 per person per year. So for one person, that's $36,000 over the course of a decade. And we just think about what that $36,000 could go to in the city of College Park, right? In education and infrastructure. And so I want us to think about it in terms of dollars and cents as well, because the dollar moves people. And so I think if we can make it relational in that way, then that makes a lot of sense. And I hate that I have to leave after this. We started a virtual bus tour to go around the state virtually. We were going to do an in-person bus tour, but we had to cancel because of the pandemic. And so we have another event in Hancock County tonight. So, but thank you all for inviting me in. It's been a really great conversation.
Thank you, Ed. Appreciate you. So, Mr. Lance Jones, you and I had a chance to speak prior to this, and you shared with me, you were basically raised in College Park, and that you know it intimately. What have you seen in your lifespan? Like, has it changed any in the last 10 and 20 years?
The areas that have changed, the changed areas have been a direct result of, let's just say, places like my high school, Woodward Academy, which the change isn't necessarily change that we might expect, but in Woodward's case, they've, for better or worse, that neighborhood around it, bought up land and flipped some of those houses and tried to do that level of, dare I say, gentrification. And that's different than what the census can offer, because, when you have organizations that, and I love my school, don't get it twisted, Woodward's a great school, but Woodward can't fix the roads, and Woodward can't make businesses want to come to College Park. And so while there have been areas of College Park that have seen development, that development has been restricted in large part, because of the entities that are pushing that, rather than, organically through things like the census. And I was, in listening to this conversation, I was thinking a little bit about the practical ways in which this could help, selfishly, my life personally. And I kept thinking how, like, I bought my motorcycle in large part because it's a bike that can go off-road and on-road. And that bike can navigate our pockmarked streets better than any bike that I could have purchased. Would I have bought another bike if the streets had been smoother? I don't know, maybe. But all I know is when I bought that bike, I was like, yo, I got to be prepared for these potholes. And so the very practical, the very real effects of this census are seen every day. And you can extrapolate that and say, hey, how many folks have gotten flat tires? How many folks have gotten dented rims? How many folks have had to swerve? And this is just talking about the roads, right? How many folks have swerved to avoid something and maybe got in an accident, or maybe somebody hit something and got in an accident. But y'all are getting money if your car gets messed up because of the roads, and so just that one thing, it's the road aspect, the infrastructure aspect means so much. And so, since I graduated from high school, and I'll date myself, 2002, what have I seen? I've seen pockets of development, but I haven't seen development on a true citywide scale. And that's exactly what we need in order for this city to continue to grow and to continue to thrive and to reflect the heart of the citizens here in College Park.
And the tool to make that happen is happening right now, ladies and gentlemen. It's called the 2020 Census. You can fill it out at my2020census.gov. You can call 1-844-330-2020. I want to piggyback on that a little bit. I have been very fortunate, and I'm thankful and blessed to have been to 46 states in this country. I have visited many at MLK Boulevard, Denver, New York, Chicago, Seattle, Portland, LA. Sadly, they all look the same. They all look the same. The people who live there are our people, and they don't count themselves. And so therefore, there are no small business loans that are being given to open up businesses in the community. And so the infrastructure is not there. So there are more potholes than you care for. It's so vitally important. I know we don't think it affects us. I know we don't think it's going to come to us. And you may not see it right now. What do you want for your child? Do you have a child who's under the age of 10, 8? What type of experience do you want them to have in the city of College Park? What kind of education do you want them to have? It's all woven together. It's all related. Okay, so let's move on to the next one. So what are some solutions? Here's an alarming number. And again, tea can be sweet, but it can be a little bitter sometimes. In the city of College Park, there are over 8,000 units that say, or housing rooftops, I believe you said, Demetrius, 8,188. 75% of those are occupied as of the last census information survey that went out, I think, last year. Here's the big challenge. 74% of those are renters. We're talking about over 6,000 people are renting in the city of College Park. Now, for those who have been shuffling around, April 1st was National Census Day. That doesn't mean that was the only day you could do the census. That
Right.
just means that was the official launch of the census. The census has been now moved out to October 31st. That's the last day you can self-respond. And if you don't want somebody to come knock on your door or wave at you with a face mask on and gloves, fill out your census. That's the quickest and easiest way to prevent anybody from coming on your property and making you feel like, oh no, I don't want to engage with anybody. Okay, fill out your census. But we're talking about 74% are renters. So let's say in April 1st, you were renting in an apartment in the city of College Park. And because COVID hit, listen, we've all had challenges during this time. Maybe you had to leave because you couldn't pay your rent. You had to go move in with your cousin. So maybe you crossed the street, you now live in another city south or another city east, but you still didn't fill out your census. You need to fill out your census. April 1st, you live in College Park, you need to say you were in College Park, because that's what's going to benefit not just College Park, but surrounding, because you'll come back, I promise you. The city of College Park is a beautiful city. We did a census car cruise. Man, such a beautiful city. Beautiful parks, beautiful streets. It's a wonderful, wonderful city. So I go back, gentlemen. We have over 4,600 renters. How do we talk to them, engage them, activate them to want to buy in on this?
I'm going to say this. We have been trying to activate this initiative because somehow we have to partner with a lot of the management companies. See, this is something new. Well, I can't say it's new. I've been down here for 13 years now from Detroit. And 12 of those years I've been here in College Park in the same place. And we have the management companies that are taking over, that are responsible for collecting the rents and the leases and carrying on. There has got to be a way where we can partner with them, because one thing we know that on the first of the month, everybody's paying rent. Okay. So if there is a way that we could partner with a lot of the apartment complexes and things here to where we can either set up stations or something like that, to where we can talk and engage the folks then, or engage the apartment complexes. If we can get to those who during that time of the month, because as we all know, we shop and we have to pay utilities down to the city hall or whatever. When you pay your lights and your gas or whatever it is that you're doing, there has to be something in here that we can partner with the city and everything, so we can correlate that and tie that all in, because during that time of the month, we know everybody is centralized. Okay, no one is going to escape that. Okay, at this particular time. Another thing too, and I'm gonna say this, I was going to be a little facetious, because everybody kept saying, okay, if you know about their ages, I'm 50, okay, and being up north, I've done this a few times of being counted, and there's such a difference, because before there wasn't they went door to door when it got down to the critical moments. But before, what they used to do in downtown Detroit, they were paying everybody to be census takers. That was the job, okay, and they were paying like $20 an hour, and they were trying to get everybody to hustle, and it became the hustle. But what it was at that time was this long questionnaire that they were trying to get everybody to fill out, while I'm trying to go to work and catch this bus. You know, you trying to interrupt me, and I'm trying to get to this bus, and this bus run every hour. I ain't got time to talk to you right now. Let me get to this bus. And so that there posed to be a problem. But what it did also do was that it had engaged children, because if the parents was the one getting paid, what happened, because we got a lot of teenagers who wasn't able to vote yet because the voting age is 18. But for the high school kids and junior high school kids who wanted to become active, this gave them an opportunity to get involved in the quote unquote political process. And they were able to go out to help spread the message, help be census takers, and get the county carrying on. So in that, it was twofold because it allowed us to engage the citizens, even though a lot of them felt that we didn't have the time to do it because of the inopportunity and the mistiming because of how they were trying to catch the buses. But it also gave and expanded the territory when we were allowing the kids to come in because, it's just like when kids were selling candy and cookies, little Ray Ray or little Pookie Honey selling the little kids, so you get involved in it because they got to keep those, dimples and the smile or whatever, and it engaged everything. So I'm going to suggest that part of our strategy needs to be that we partner with our management companies, and a lot of those in the rental facilities that carried on partner with the churches. Now every Sunday morning the kids are gonna go to church, so we have to get there and partner with them. But we also, with that church piece, we also have to make sure that we make it accessible because there's a lot of people who, for religious reasons, won't do it because their religious convictions will say, I'm not supposed to be a part of the political process. So a lot of that education piece, again, has to be given so that folks can realize the importance of this so that they don't let their religious convictions stop them from being part of the process, So as we're partnering with the church component and getting the pastors, and we're here in Atlanta now. We're talking about College Park or whatever, but Eddie Long is city of not Eddie Long. I'm sorry, I'm trying to say Creflo Dollar. He's over here in South Fulton, but there's a lot of College Park residents that attends that church. So somehow we have to partner with with the pastors of some of the mega churches that support our areas and things, to where we can get this information out there and get the census information filled. And yes, it's a very simple process. As everyone keeps saying, it is so simple to where you will complain harder about wearing a face mask than you would take time to do the census. As in fact, less time that you say, I can't stand wearing this mask and I'm sick of all this, you'll be done with the census.
Anybody else have any creative ways for us to engage the renters? I know that Ed mentioned they were doing phone banking. I have encouraged people to reach into their cell phone and reach out to a minimum of 5 people and ask them if they have completed their census, and then have them reach out to 5 people. It's almost a grassroots, old school type of methodology to be able to, engage everybody. Amazingly enough, not everybody's on, social media. Not everybody paid their cable bill this month or last month. So, they're not watching anything. They're not on IG. So we got to go old school and just reach out to folks and give them a call. Anybody else?
No, I like that, and like I said, when we were free and not bound to the house, we were actually hitting up the barbershops, and that has been a great avenue for us because we're able to talk directly to men that are coming into those shops, women who are coming into those shops bringing their son to get their hair cut. So that's a great way. But I know that with this whole COVID thing, we've kind of had to pivot a little. But I love the idea of working with the management companies and getting something out to those individuals, and maybe looking at incentives.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really when you get buy-in, is when there's some incentives in there where there's management companies or store business owners that give folks an incentive for taking the census. And then now we have the voting coming up. That'd be a great way to encourage folks as well. Just think, if people were able to get, and I know you can't do this, but just think if somebody said, if you go ahead and complete your census, I'll cash up you $5. I guarantee you, we will have more census taken out there than we hope for. People are motivated by incentives, and so if there was a way to incentivize folks from a management company that says, you might be late this month, you take your census, then I'll go ahead and waive your late fee. I'm not sure, but you know, some way to incentivize folks to making sure it gets done.
Let me piggyback on that with you, Lawrence, because see, one of the things that we have now because of COVID, we have a number of places that are giving food assistance and carrying on to a lot of our residents. Because I'm one of them. I've been furloughed since March 21st, so you know, there's a lot of people out there who are uh, doing a lot of in-kind services and stuff. How can we partner with them so when folks come and pick up food or whatever, or clothing or whatever the services is, that we can get them to take a census form then? Complete the information, because they got to get the information anyway, because a lot of the programs need the information for their records. For those who are getting if they're getting government subsidies or whatever, they got to have their numbers and stuff together anyway. So it could be a double hit, or killing two birds with one stone, if we can get them to, if they don't fill it out, then if we have postcards or something to where it can be distributed to say, remember, be mindful to take the census or something, that we could partner with them, because a lot of that incentives on that, you know, we get a lot of people who would get caught up and well, I won't say caught up, but what it is, because they're in need, oftentimes we can lessen that blow. And then with this being what it is, we can educate them on the importance of the census here.
And Alex, let me say one more thing. I serve on we serve on the Clayton County Complete Count Committee. That's a tongue twister. We serve on that committee, and right before COVID hit, we were actually planning a concert in the park, and we had Dougie Fresh coming, which I was looking forward to. That was going to be on April the 1st. We had Dougie Fresh coming, and what we were going to do was, in order to get entrance into this free concert, you had to complete the census. You have folks there doing the census with individuals, and if you've already taken it, you had to show some proof that you've already taken it, that you've already completed the census. And so we were geared up for that, and then the world shut down. But looking at creative ways, because I think, and I'm not sure how we got Dougie Fresh. I'm not sure who paid for that. I know that the committee did not. But that would have been a great way to get folks more engaged into getting them to take the census.
Lance?
Yeah, let me just jump in real quick. And I want to piggyback on what you just said, because you can still get Dougie Fresh to have the concert. You just make it like virtually, right? And maybe the ticket to the concert is your completed census receipt when they email you or whatever. And that's like a some way to do it. But what I was going to say, going back to some of the renter question, it's like folks rent, but folks still have to, get gas in their cars, right? Yeah. They'll still go to the package store, right? Maybe pick up
Hello.
Some folks might be going to the COVID-19 testing sites. And all these places that folks are still frequenting. You can camp out a census worker there, and even if they don't get them to do it, at least they'll be in the forefront of their minds. And if you work with those local businesses, like maybe some of those independent, package store owners, I know 3 within like 3 blocks of where I'm at. I'm sure they'd be more than happy, because it benefits them as well, just like it benefits all of us. So, I would think of all of the habits that we still have despite this pandemic, and maybe put people there on the ground where folks are going in their day-to-day existence.
I'm going to add to that, Lance. I'm sorry, Alex, because when we're talking about that, we also have the COVID testing sites. Because I know I had mentioned this to one of the counters, Miss Mary. I mentioned this to her, and I was like, couldn't we partner with them? And I also mentioned this to someone who I know who works for Fulton County Health Department, and he thought it might be a little conflict of interest there. But I'm like, no. I don't think it would be, because I'm not asking you to take the census. If we get someone from the census board to go out there and set up just like a tent with everybody else, because everybody's driving through. So at the same drive-through, you could hit the line and make sure you take the census there. Because I know I just went over to the GICC Tuesday for a test over there, and the way how the production is going, if they just added a tent right at the end just before you leave to make sure that you take the census there, and then with other testing sites, I think that would be something that we can look into to make sure that we get the count and get folks counted.
So you all have great ideas, and I want to tell you that some of these things are already happening. So the weekend of July 24th through 26th, there will be a Faith Communities Census Weekend. So every church that we are in contact with, which is pretty much all of them, is going to be giving a census message. In terms of incentives, the wonderful city of College Park is already on that. We have some businesses and some restaurants who have agreed to give you a discount on their food, or give you a free upgrade on their drink, or give you some extra fries. We're hashing out those details as we speak. In terms of a concert, the County of Fulton is looking into doing something and in partnership with College Park. So we're definitely doing that. The COVID test sites are a little challenging. The government tells us where we can go and where we can't go. And when the numbers get too high, we can't go anywhere. But I have placed a large order, and we have placed orders for the city of College Park to have census materials on site. So there are census materials on site. I will say the challenge we're facing is, how do we get people to understand that this is going to adversely affect me if I don't do it, right? It's like brushing your teeth. You kind of take it for granted until your teeth fall out, or until you have gingivitis, and then it's kind of too late, right? Well, the census, I'm not worried about the census. I'm not tripping. It ain't paying my bills, yada, yada, yada. Except when you go re-up for your snaps because you were furloughed, or when you want to fix the potholes, you didn't do your census. You made a good point. 5 years into it, you can't change your mind and say, no, I'm here now. 3 of us, we're here. No, this is a once in a decade. It's a decennial census. So that means once in a decade opportunity to shape the future. And that means changing. That means improving. Because at 40%, all we can do is better. You know what I'm saying? Like, if we get to 60% and then enumerators go out and help increase it another 20%, man, College Park at a 90% response rate, you won't even be able to recognize it in 2 years.
Exactly.
There won't be any potholes anymore. There'll be all kinds of new businesses coming in. All the kids they'll be able to have the after school programs that are federally funded. So I want to touch on that real quick because we have about 20 minutes to go. The programs that are affected by the census, and again, we need to bring this home so the people understand this is getting you in your refrigerator. This is getting you in your car. This is getting you with your child's education. The programs that are affected by the census, if you know any of them, please share before I go ahead and go in.
Well, I think we discussed how the educational and school system is impacted by it, but one of the things I don't think we might have shed enough light on is the trickle-down effect that it has, not just on those that are currently in the community, but those that are returning to our community. And by that I mean from the incarcerated population. Yeah. If you don't know, the jails and prisons that house those inmates, whether it be for a brief period or for an extended amount of time, do count those individuals. And that means those areas and those counties, which are largely rural and aren't necessarily a part of the urban infrastructure, are receiving funding for those individuals from our communities who may be returning to us within this 10-year span of time, but the funds that they have been accounted for will not be coming home with them. So I think that there is a need to show that the count is impacted when we are incarcerated, and then when we come home and decide to no longer engage with our political infrastructure, we're also doing ourselves a disservice, because the funding that comes to the communities can prevent crime and can lower the feeling of the desperation that sometimes leads to high volumes in crime. So again, with employment, other opportunities for small business loans for those who come home and choose to pursue an entrepreneurial level of employment. All of this, I feel like, is tied in the census and could be shed a little bit more light on. But I just wanted to highlight that domain in particular.
That is correct. That is correct. Demetrius, you mentioned being furloughed. Prior to my working here, I was a teenage father at 16, and I required a lot of assistance from federally funded programs.
Mm-hmm.
And that would be WIC, that would be food stamps, because there wasn't snaps then.
Right.
There was food stamps. And these are all things that helped me at age 16 become an adult and not do some things that got me locked up, right? That then prevented me from being where I am today. So, Medicaid, Peach Care, SNAPS, WIC, those are all programs. One we didn't talk about, and let's talk about Pell Grants. Let's talk about sending our children to get better educations. Again, here are census numbers. 86.8% of College Park residents have a high school diploma, but only 24.8% have a degree.
Associate degree, yeah.
We're talking about Pell Grants is free money from the federal government for you to get your education on. When you get your education and you get that degree, you get to make more money. The median household income in College Park is $32,000. $32,000. With a degree, it goes up exponentially. So these are all programs, again, that go in and help improve the quality of life. And I think that's the one thing we have to understand is the census will improve your quality of life, but it will exponentially improve the quality of life if you have children, right? So before we go away off this topic, I want you just to share what you maybe are taking back from this gathering, this reunion. Maybe something you learned, maybe something you're going to do, maybe you're going to reach out to 3 people now. What's the action? What's the activity that we're going to take from here and take it out there? Demetrius, you want to start?
Okay. Well, I'm going out of the box here because, as I said, with my radio show and with my live stream podcast, I think what I would like to do is to take someone on the journey and just pull the census up and fill it out with someone live on the stream, so that we can see how simple it is. And then also, I like these statistics because prior to preparing for this, I too went and found them same statistics, Alex. So as you're saying this, I'm like, wow, I just read that. And one of the things that fascinates me about it is that when we're looking at the education component, a lot of times folks in our community, and this is going to sound a little bit that way, but we know how we are, so I'm talking to us. Okay. Folks in our community, we take for granted that these particular programs are going to be there. Oftentimes the complaint is, oh, that don't make no sense. How come so-and-so got so many food stamps and I only got such and such and so-and-so? The complaint is, I know here we're talking about, statewide, how come single folks can't get Medicaid and only women with children can? And so we have those particular kinds of arguments when we look at the return of citizens coming back into mainstream society, coming from incarceration to mainstream. We're looking at how can we get them back into the workforce? How can we do this? What programs are available? What apprenticeship programs? If we don't have the businesses that allow for apprenticeships to give a second chance, then it defeats the purpose. So this is some of the information that I have that I know I want to take out and to share with folks so that we can drive it home as to why the census is important. My biggest thing is this whole educational piece, as far as us teaching folks why it is important, and the whole idea of we have to treat it like we do everything else as far as voting. If you don't get counted, you can't complain. But this thing here, it's not like you can wait 4 years or every 2 years because we have something. This is a 10-year thing. And most of the time, the complaints don't come until we are 5, 6 years down the line, but all the money has been counted, and we've been gerrymandering, we've been redistricting and carrying on. You have the congressmen and the senators and the state representatives already rezoned and all of that. And a lot of people don't understand that. So that there was my takeaway from this, is to make sure that we express how important this is through this educational component. And then like a blooming onion, honey, we got to get all those layers so folks can understand this completely.
That's great. And I appreciate that. And I'm actually going to circumvent asking you other gentlemen, because we have a couple questions that came in through social media. We talk about we need to go to the people, but there is a virus that is killing folks. How do we combat that and get people to complete the survey? So this is somebody who's watching us. This is a real question. Mm-hmm. Who feels like they want to address that?
I'm going to take it like this, just like you're doing here. If you're watching us, then it's up to you to take and share this video. You can take and share this information. A lot of this is online, census2020.gov. You could take this same information. Everybody got a phone nowadays, so they could pull it up on their phone and they could do just click, click, click. It's as simple as that. It doesn't take, just like I said earlier, as long as it's going to take you to complain about wearing this mask, and as long as it took you to type that up in here, to type that question, you could have been done with the census. And this is and as blunt as I'm putting it this way to you, for whoever this is, it's just that simple, to where we can get over the COVID. It doesn't take anybody to go and touch anything or whatever. This is right here within the comforts of your home. So we can remove that fear of being COVID and coronavirus contaminated. It will remove the fear of socially distance. In fact, what best way to do it than to sit up there on the computer and send somebody the email or send somebody the link to do it online. Everything right here, it keeps you at risk and it keeps you safe, and then you can still disseminate the information. So it's just that clear.
And I have a solution as well. Everybody who has an email signature, you put sincerely, regards, maybe you put a great quote. I would ask you to put, please complete your census, my2020census.gov, so that every time you send out an email, that's attached to it. And if your email gets forwarded and gets forwarded, it gets forwarded again, put the phone number down there, 844-330-2020. So that's another solution. Does anybody else have another solution before we move on to the next question?
Hashtag.
I would add that you could also include the web link on your IG and social media pages for your profiles, and continue to help drive traffic that way. In addition, we do have the phone option. So for those, like you said earlier, that are a little elderly and may not be as technically savvy, they can just pick up the phone, whether it's the push to talk phone or a local landline phone. They can still connect and still be counted.
I like that. Lance, you that was yours, right? He said what you said.
I was literally. I'm so glad you said that, Carlos, because I'm putting it in my bio right now to complete your census. And and I'm going to put the link up there at 1.2. But yeah, I think all those are wonderful ideas. And actually, I hadn't considered email signature. That's a great thing that I'm going to do as soon as this call is over as well. And I think maybe for those of us who graduated from high school, or those of us who have an advanced degree, one thing in that way is maybe to reach out to whatever the local student organization having to do with your high school, or if you got your GED, there's something similar for the GED. Like if you go through your schooling, like your history of schooling, like there's an opportunity there to reach out to alumni folks as well. And I'm going to go to my class of 02 at Woodward, and class of 06 at my college, and circle back with all my people there. And, just 2 quick things you can do. And so that's 2 right there.
I like that, Lance. Can I piggyback on that, Lance? Because as you were saying that, I'm not a part of one of the Divine Nine, but there's a lot of people who are, particularly where the Divine Nine are African American centered sororities and fraternities, and I'm going to encourage everyone who is a part of one of them, get to your sorors and your frat brothers and things, and help you get that out. And then for the young folks, everything is about a hashtag, so let's hashtag it as well. You know, we're talking about putting into your your signature, your email signature. Well, then everybody got a tweet somewhere or whatever. Y'all know how to Instagram and all of that. Hashtag it. Hashtag mycensus2020.gov or hashtag complete the census, to where we can get this out there so that folks will know that this is real.
So we have one more question, which is on the flip side. How to connect with the people who aren't watching virtual meetings? If someone has not completed the census by now, why would they all of a sudden want to complete it?
Again, if you're watching us and you know someone who isn't, see, this is time. We always say we preach it to the choir. Well, now it's time for the choir to go sing. Okay. If you know someone who is not watching this, now it's time for you to, just like we just did, take the information and share it. Child, I was watching this and such and such and so and so. We know how all this is, as far as you tell one and they tell one, and you tell two friends and they tell two friends, and so on and so on. We know what word of mouth is. So now what we have to do, again, is time for the choir to do an A and a B selection. So go out there and take the information and share it so that the folks will know about it. Because yeah, you're right. There's a lot of folks who may not be here. They may be at work. You know, there's a lot of folks who may be at work, and you know, during this particular time of the day, or like I'm a third shifter, so I would usually be asleep right about now, getting ready to go to work. So you have to take, and again, hashtag it. Take the information and send it in the text, or get on the phone and you know how this was called dishing. Well, my show was called Dishing Tea, but this is called What's the Tea? Girl, I don't tell you how the tea is. You know what to do and carrying on to get it out there. So now let's get creative with it and make that a part of the conversation. Y'all just saw that the president was here in town, so I know y'all gonna talk about that. So while you talk about that, slide in about the census as well, because we need this coin.
I would add to that I think that you know, I'm from a somewhat younger generation. I won't date myself, but I would say that I've seen my peers and some a little underneath me find a means to appropriate time for things that are trivial, especially during this COVID challenge. And I know that there have been some things that have united us, such as the Versus challenges, where we get to see some of our music legends bring their catalogs together. I challenge those who participate in all these different forums to just pin your opinion or pin the link on these forums. I know that this TikTok trend, which I'm unfortunately a little too uncoordinated to participate in, is something that could also be a fire. And so I know that there's a lot of ways in which we go about challenging ourselves, having more of a social activation amongst ourselves, amongst the younger generations. But I think for those of you who find that a virtual panel may not be the platform for your peers, be creative in your own message and in your own method and how you choose to challenge them to do it, and do so in a fashion in which you can have respect for, because I feel as though there is a swelling of opportunity right now in our society. And with us coming together on so many fronts, whether it be for the injustices that we see or for the political landscape that we're currently withstanding, I think that we need to try and collaborate more efficiently and to be more aggressive in our approach to our political position. And this is the method in which we do that by.
I agree.
Yes, I agree. So we have 5 minutes to go. I want each of you to give me your 30-second elevator pitch to somebody who has not completed the census that you ran into. Demetrius, you go first. 30 seconds.
Listen, I need for you to make sure that you complete this census, because we got $20,000 with your name on it that's going to make sure that you get your voice heard, that you get the programs that you need in your community, that your kids get free lunch or discounted lunch, that your potholes get together, that the church sit up there and get the parking lot and actually get a building fund going on somewhere. that the school systems actually get books and supplies. You are important. You don't think that your vote counts? Well, if you don't think your vote counts, you better be counted, because this is where I need you.
Nice. Mr. Lawrence Wilbon, sir.
Yeah, get out there and complete that census. All you have to do is log on your phone, log on your computer, make a phone call. It takes 10 minutes, and without your count, without you being counted, resources are going to be allocated to other communities. After you complete that census, let's also get out there and vote.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Lance Jones.
Yeah, I'll personalize it once again to my plight of the pothole, and I'll ask folks simply, do you like potholes? And if the answer is no, then complete your census. And if the answer is yes, then we got to figure out what's going on.
There you go, Mr. Carlos Scott.
I would just encourage everybody to take a really good look at their surroundings and ask yourself, is this the same community that I want to pass down to my generations, future generations, and to challenge yourself to ask for more from your community. I think sometimes we often aspire to make it in life, and with making it, we also make it out of our communities. But I feel like the proper approach for our community at this point is to make it, to master, and then to matter. So I subscribe to the 3M theory, and I ask that you do the same. And to matter will be to make sure that your voice is heard, whether you be participating in our vote or that you're accounted for in the census.
Man, those are all wonderful 30-second elevator pitches. I'm going to leave you with, there is literally over $675 billion that's going to change your community. It's going to adversely impact your future, but not just your future, my future, our future collectively. Again, complete the task while the tool is in hand. The tool in hand right now is the census. To me, it is the great equalizer. It was said before, voting is vitally important, but that has a 4-year or 2-year lifespan to it. This decennial census has 10 years on it, and you can't change it. Remember, the money goes to the count and not the need. So, my2020census.gov, 1-844-330-2020 is the number you can call. If you live in an apartment complex and you've been inspired to want to approach your complex manager to do some things with the City of College Park, please reach out to the City of College Park so we can do something. I will leave you with, the 2020 census, make it count, because in College Park, you matter, your count matters. And so you have to show up on paper. We thank you for this time. We hope that you discover that the tea is a little bitter, but it can be very sweet too if you get counted. So we hope to see those numbers go up. We're currently at 40.6%. I challenge you, reach out into your phone, 5 people, text them, call them, have them reach out to 5 more people. Change your email signature, change your voicemail. Hey, you reached Alex. Did you do your census? This thing is real serious. It's real serious. Thank you, gentlemen, for participating. I greatly appreciate your time. I look forward to us doing whatever we can do in the near future as this census continues to move forward. Have a wonderful evening. Be well.
All right, good night.
College Park.
And I want one of those shirts.
We'll get you one of those shirts.
I got you.